Well, we have some people in the YouTube chat. Feel free to hit that thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit a whole bunch of buttons. I'm also producing the show, so I got 8 million screens going up at the same time. So I'm looking at the chat, I'm looking at Will, I'm looking at everything. Make sure everyone can hear me on the Rotogrinders app if you download it on your phone. So let's talk. Do we got anything inactives wise that? I mean, obviously Chris Godwin's inactive, right? He's injured. Okay, big deal. But I looked at the Bucks inactives. There's nothing that changes the player pool. I didn't see the Giants ones, but I mean, there's no one out injured. There's no like surprise.
Devontae Freeman.
Well, he's not active, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's expected. We expected.
I think he was called out like early this week. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm just talking about like the guys that are like the fifth wide receiver or whatever. Is CJ Board active, or is he out of the concussion protocol? Did we find that out yet? According to practice reports, he wasn't practicing, so I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I don't have anything that's speaking.
Okay, well, I'm gonna look on Twitter now for those Giants inactives. But Will, can you break down kind of like obviously the studs of the slate, and most of them, according to you, which is common sense, is going to be on the Buccaneers side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you take a look at this slate, I think everybody, we know Brady's in play. We know that obviously Mike Evans is going to be in play. Scotty Miller, Gronk, I think is going to be a favorite of mine on this slate. Leonard Fournette, I think is going to be, good leverage, off of Ronald Jones, especially with, the fact that they're kind of, having a little bit more of a split. If you look at, what kind of happened last week, I mean, I think it's very telling of the fact that, Leonard Fournette may be on his way to a pretty nice night. You look at the snaps, Ronald Jones was at 44% last week, and Leonard Fournette was at 54%. If it stays that way this week, I still think, maybe Ronald Jones gets a little bit more ownership. Not saying that he can't run in for 2 touchdowns, but I think between those two, Fournette may be the guy. And then I think the flyer tonight is Tyler Johnson. I just think the last time Godwin was out, they had some injuries, yes. Tyler Johnson was able to pop off a little bit. I think he's a guy you want to get in the mix. I know I'm kind of, dabbling down, but I'm basically just going through the Bucks. But, in terms of the studs, as you asked me, Brady, Fournette, and Gronk, those are going to be my top 3 on plays from the Bucks, period.
Okay, so I could see from the chat, and I looked it up on Twitter, CJ Board is inactive. So everyone else, I mean, it's obviously defensive players, and if you're into that type of thing of, some backup guard is out or that matters that much, it probably doesn't. We got everyone for all the running backs are active for the Bucks. So I think that's going to be one of the keys to the slate as far as predicting if who gets the time, who gets the touches, and if it's going to be, skewed in some direction. And obviously, Will, you're flummoxed by the Bucks running back situation. With Fournette getting more of the pass catching work, at what, 2,600 cheaper? Do you think I'm talking about not who's the better play as far as point per dollar, but as far as in comparison to the ownership? Do you think that, especially in the large field GPPs, because my natural inclination is to go Fournette. If it's gonna be like a 60-40, 60-30, maybe they get Vaughn or McCoy in for a couple of snaps. But Fournette has better PPR value. Ronald Jones has better touchdown equity. What do you think the field thinks about, like, because they may view Fournette as an RB2, and maybe Fournette comes in at 30% owned and Jones comes at 50% owned, because in that case, I want as much Fournette as I could get.
That's the approach I think I'm leaning towards. I feel like the field may not, catch up quick enough. And, here's the deal. We've got all the information in Lineup HQ, and not that it's a perfect science, but it's going to be close enough to tell you what the field is doing. It says to me that everybody's excited about Ronald Jones. And, I mean, we've got him projected at 53.3% and Fournette at 28.9%. You know me, Blender. I'm almost going to be lock buttoning Fournette tonight, and probably I'm just going to X out Ronald Jones. Like that's how tight I'm going to be with the Bucks to get leverage and get really creative. So I'm just not going to play Ronald Jones at all, and just take the chances with Fournette and hope that I'm right, based on what I saw last week, which was a very small sample size. But I think Fournette has more outs to get the job done than Jones does. Jones has got to score touchdowns. Fournette can score 10 to 12 points just from catching passes.
Okay, and then on the receiving side, obviously Mike Evans, highest priced wide receiver, 10.8. Brady's the highest priced guy in the slate, 12,000. With Godwin out, we naturally, inclined to go, oh, when Godwin's out, you play Evans. But do you think at his price, this is not the, we're not, do you expect a shootout here so much that, like, Evans is 10.8, Miller is 8.6. We got Tyler Johnson, probably going to operate in the slot at 4,800. Maybe he'll share some snaps with Justin Watson, who's 800. Obviously, the tight ends, Gronk, Brait, even Tanner Hudson. The way that Brady tends to spread the ball around, do you think that there's a case could be made that at 10.8K, Mike Evans could have one of those lines? Remember in the games, 3 catches for 2 touchdowns in like 7 yards and be the highest scoring wide receiver in those lines? Are you more inclined to play Evans, even though you're heavy into the Buccaneers? But I mean, I like your attitude that if you're going to play the Bucks in large field, leave a whole bunch of salary on the table. Don't play Mike Evans, and just play for a Mike Evans, 4 for 60 and nothing, and his 10 points aren't going to matter at 10.8K.
That's the exact approach I'm taking. I'm not playing any Mike Evans tonight. I'm hitting the X button. And look, this could very well work out very bad. Mike Evans could go 10 for 120 and 3 touchdowns, but I'm willing to air that he doesn't. And so that's kind of the approach I'm going to take. And look, I like Mike Evans, but I think to get leverage on the field, look, Mike Evans, we've got him projected at 70% at 10.8K, in a spot where Tom Brady now has a new Mike Evans in the name of Rob Gronkowski, who I feel like is a touch more safe with these other guys out. He's got Scotty in the slot, who's basically Julian Edelman. Then he's got, Tyler Johnson, who's, what was the other guy he had last year? Good, the guy, I think he played at Miami. I can't remember, played college football at Miami. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But that's kind of how I view this offense. And then he's got, Fournette, which is his new James White. And that's how I'm looking at it. I'm fading Mike Evans at 70% ownership, with the fact that Brady spreads the ball around so much. And that's the same reason I'm fading Ronald Jones. He has way more ownership than Fournette. And I think Fournette's the better play. I think Scotty Miller's the better play. I'm just going to fade him.
Okay, well now let's get to the other side. As far as we're going to talk about studs first and the general overview, and then we'll get into kind of construction and how to get leverage and correlations and all that type of stuff. So on the other side of the ball, if you're fading Evans and Jones, you're fading a 10.8K player and an 8.8K player. Like, what are you just not doing? Are you just playing what $4, five? And I mean, you got to play Giants. Obviously, you have to play at least one.
Yeah.
So on the Giants side of the ball, they're all healthy. We got like Slayton, Shepard, Engram. Tate is cheap at 3,000, but I mean their rotation. Tate's not the most appealing of options, but he's the cheapest. You even got, if you want to go for 2 tight end sets, you got Caden Smith down at 400. Obviously Wayne Gallman. I'm assuming Wayne Gallman and Daniel Jones will be the most owned Giants, because obviously the quarterback, especially one like Daniel Jones who has like rushing, he could rush for 30 yards, he could rush for a touchdown. And Gallman, we'll see, 60 to 70% of the work at 5,200, and he does catch passes out of the backfield. I mean, he got Deion Lewis there. As he also could catch passes, but he's on the wrong side of the timeshare. So how are you mixing in these Giants into your whole hog Buccaneers strategy?
Well, here's the thing. I talked about this on the Blitz show. If anybody watches that over the weekend, and it's no secret to my strategy here. If I get a core group that I like, Blender, like let's say right now, everybody knows I like Brady, I like Scotty Miller, and I like Gronk, right? And I like Fournette. I'm just going to rotate the mess out of these Giants. I'm going to have one with Golden Tate. I'm going to have one with Sterling Shepard, one with Slayton, one with Watson, one with Gallman. I'm just going to rotate them all around because guess what? I don't like any Giants, and I don't know which one of these guys is going to catch 7 passes for 80 yards today, and I'm going to need them. So that's going to be my approach. So in a sense, I'm playing more Giants than Buccaneers, but I'm doing that because I'm going to have a core group of Buccaneers in every lineup, and I'm just going to rotate. Now, if you ask me my favorite Giants play, it's actually Sterling Shepard at 6,600. And I think he's 9,000 on FanDuel. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what it is. He's by far and away my favorite Giant. I think as long as he doesn't get a concussion, I feel like he's got pretty good upside in this spot.
Well, I mean, you're playing primarily from a construction perspective on DraftKings, like a 5-1 or a 4-2 Buccaneers.
Correct.
Okay. Let's get into my strategy. Let's flip the script. Okay, but me and Will, we think alike, but we play differently. Will tends to go, and I say this about Keith also. Keith and you go for what's the most probable, let me get the right combination, and then hopefully I'm not duplicated that much. Right? You're like, I hope maybe I get the combination that is only duped 6 times, but that's still like 50 grand, 60 grand. You'll take it. But if it's duped 78 times and you end up with like 6,000, it's like that's not the end of the world. Like you think that way. I think of long term. Like I've won 3 showdowns before, but when I win a substantial amount of money. And all the other times I lose, like literally, like I don't make a profit at all. Like I may lose a little, right? You put in 600, you get 580 back, and it's like, okay, survive in advance. So my strategies are much higher variance.
Well, last thing too, Blender. Keep in mind, I'm probably more willing to leave like 5,000 on the table, where most people are just extremely uncomfortable doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the other thing I do. Well, so I'm just putting that out there for people, especially in Showdown. You'd be surprised how many times my lineup that has 6,000 on the table is just like by itself, especially in single entry stuff. But we'll get into that strategy later. Right now, we're talking about trying to take down like 100,000, right. 200,000 field.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, you go ahead. Go
right.
ahead.
In the single entry stuff, you don't have to get nutso like I get. Like, but you do, like, you leave money on the table. I do that also. But especially in single entry, a lot of people don't do that in single entry, so you're more likely to get a solo win with a somewhat reasonably, like, the Bucs 4-2 type of lineup. I'm going, most of my lineups tonight, I'm playing 60. They're going to be 3 threes or 4-2 Giants. Here's my thinking. I'm going to do two lines of thinking. First, the common sense, and then the quantitative analysis. Because Eric Beimfor, he does our Slate IQ article for premium members, rotogrinders.com/premium. Great showdown analysis, and uses the data of past slates. So, from an intuitive sense, okay, I'm thinking in terms of Brady spreads the ball around a lot. So it's quite possible that at these prices, 10.8, 8.6, that even Gronk is 8,000, that not a single one of them gets a score that you feel like needs to be in the captain spot, right? They get, no one gets 100 yards receiving. No one gets more than 5 receptions. No one gets more than 1 touchdown. It gets spread out. Fournette has a touchdown. Jones has a touchdown. So that's 2 running backs with a touchdown that Brady doesn't have those passing touchdowns either. And then Evans has a line of 5 for 40 with no touch, nothing. And so he doesn't get anything. Maybe Johnson is 3 for 10 with a touchdown. It's all where, it doesn't really matter. Really, the one that has the highest score, that's the one that you need, or the 1 or 2. And then everything else is on the Giants side, and not because the Giants are necessarily, beating the Buccaneers. It's just due to the fact of, their prices are cheaper. So Daniel Jones has 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. Maybe the Giants actually keep it close. So I need to find the 3 touchdowns. Where do they go to? And I could even pair Jones and Gallman together because they could hook up for a touchdown. Maybe the field won't do that. But most of the field is going to be on the Buccaneers. I'm Xing Brady out from my captain spot completely because I can't see making a non-duplicated lineup with a 12 point. We're talking about an 18K captain. Like we don't have that many options on the bottom. We really don't have like it's Jaden Mickens, I guess. I mean, like there's not much down there. So these Brady captain lineups are going to be all duplicated. Like there's no tomorrow if you're going to play them. And it's quite possible the only captains I use on the Buccaneers are Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, and I'll use Tyler Johnson as a captain also. But what backs me up is, if I could bring this up on the screen, this is part of the premium content. Well, you kind of see the YouTube chat there. Maybe I could hide that so we could see it all. But I'm just giving you a sneak peek. This is premium content. Okay, you'll get this for all showdowns. So I'm going to move it around so you can't really read it, because that's unfair to our premium members, right? I'm just joking. Eric Beinfort, we look at like the past whole bunch of slates, 100 slates, results DB, go all the way back for the 25 most similar slates to this in Showdown. And then come up and run a simulation and see what types of lineups win. Come in the top like 0.1%. So according to the analysis, 3-3, if we look at who comes up more, the blue on this is top 0.1%. So the rest of the field is in gray and the blue. I'm just explaining this to the people on YouTube. This is kind of like a sneak peek and how you could use this to build better lineups. So based on the quantitative analysis, based on this, which is not like, it's not gospel. Don't go by, it's not gospel. That the rest of the field will play 3-3s 29% of the time, but it wins at a 42% rate. 1-5s are typically horrible. That means that 1 from the loser and 5 from the winner. 1 from the winner, 5 from the loser. That rest of the field does it 11%, and it didn't win at all. There's nothing there. So like 5 1s and 4 2s. Like 5-1 is a little negative leverage. 4-2 for Buccaneers is a little positive leverage. But the highest leverage is 3-3. So I look at that, and then I look at captain and positional usage. So we do the same type of analysis. You could get, if you sign up today, you'll get this for Thursday. You'll get this for Sunday Night Showdown. You don't have to wait for the sneak peek once in a while. So I look at this, and based on the captain position leverage, because the whole thing to me is leverage. I don't care about who's most likely. It's just like, how do I get different from the rest of the field? It shows here, based on similar slates, that the most likely captain is going to be, that in a winning lineup, is going to be an RB2 or a tight end 1 or a wide receiver 3. RB1 is up there also, but it shows heavy negative leverage towards the quarterback. Quarterback 1 is down to 3%. So the 3% of the winning lineups compared to 17% of the field. And wide receiver 1 is also significantly lower also. DST is non-existent practically, and the kickers are practically non-existent. So I take a look at this chart, and I go, okay, don't play Brady, right? It could happen. It could still happen, but I'm going by just the analysis of this. If we ran this out 10,000 times, that a quarterback's not going to be in the captain, a wide receiver 1 is going to be less likely in the captain, one of the 2 running backs of the winning team. But remember, the winning team could be the Giants. So it represents the winning team, not the favored team. So especially in close games, like if the Giants win this game, then it's Dion Lewis, I guess, is the RB2. That doesn't really make sense. But if you take a look at everything about this game backs up this chart, right? Who's the RB2 of the most likely winning team? Leonard Fournette. Who's the tight end 1? It's Rob Gronkowski. Who's the wide receiver 3? Tyler Johnson. In a cheap spot, because now you could put Tom Brady in the flex and then stack Jones with 2 of his receivers. And yeah. So people think I'm a mad scientist. Like, oh my God, how do you do this stuff? It's just like I'm just gonna look at the numbers, and I hope I come out on the right side of variance. And if a lot of people are stacking the Buccaneers, I have a good shot of having much less duplicated lineups.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I will say this. I had the pleasure of actually working on Slate IQ when we first came out with it for NBA, and I got a chance to, see the inner workings of it all, and actually write an article about it every day. And let me tell you something, man. It didn't completely change my process, because if you've been doing this a while, you have a good idea. But what it does is when you get to open that thing up and you say, hey, this is based on, this is basically a Monte Carlo simulation of all the slates that are as close to this one as possible, it'll really, it'll really turn the dial in your mind and make you do some different things. So, and look, I told you from the beginning, I love Fournette, love Gronkowski, love Brady, and lo and behold, guess what's popping up in the chart? It's those same guys. It could be on the Giants side, obviously. Most likely, we think the Buccaneers are going to win, but it just goes to show that, man, when you can get some numerical value to back up your thought process, it really helps. So, I would encourage everyone to please, take a look at that. It's extremely important, outside of us telling you to play Tyler Johnson, or outside of us telling you to play Daniel Jones on the other side. Like, this can really give you a good platform and take the next step in the building up those tournament winnings for sure. And it's a long-term strategy. It's no different than the stock market. If you're getting in the stock market and you're not a day trader, you need to have a long-term strategy. It's the same thing with DFS. You make good decisions along the way, and in the end, you hit the million.
Right. Most likely, I'm going to say most likely the Bucks win what, 34-10. Bucks like 4-2 type of lineup wins, and it gets split at first place 60 times. Like I'm like, to me that's like the median in a large field GPP. Obviously in single entry it's not going to, it's smaller fields. I get it. But
Yeah.
remember, I go for gold, Will. It's like I'm reaching for the moon. It's $1 million tonight, right? It's $1 million. And if I'm going to
Yes.
split the showdowns that I've won, I've split with less than 10. Okay? And that's a lot of money. Like, one was for, 15,000, one was for 50,000. Like, I could play
Yeah.
Showdown for the next 4 years the way, because I don't play 150 max. Like I said, I'm playing 60 lineups. So like
Yeah.
I'm wildly, I could lose all of my money on a slate for the next 4 years in Showdown and break even. So so I go for the gold. If I play them for $1 million, I'm playing for I build lineups for $1 million, and if I split 10 ways, well, that's plus all the other places, that's over $100,000. So it's like I'm either going to do that or I screwed up. Like, I view it's weird, Will. How I judge and I get upset. The most of the amount of times I get upset on a Showdown slate, I get upset before the game starts. I'm the only, I mean, me and there's a couple of other good Showdown players that get upset before the game starts, because I'll put in my lineups. It'll be 8:15. I'll wait for DK to to do the ownership and all that time, and the CSV is available. I download the CSV. There's no kickoff yet, right? I download the CSV and then I check to see how many duplicates that I made. So how big they're duplicated. My aim is to get lineups that are duplicated less than 15 times. Like, I consider that to be a success. And then there's sometimes I put in 60 lineups and literally none of them are duplicated less than 15 times. The game hasn't even started yet and I'm pissed off. Okay?
Yeah.
And it doesn't
Oh,
matter
yeah.
if I win or not. It's just like I didn't accomplish the goal that I had. So that's how I judge. So for this showdown, I'm playing very limited kickers, limited defenses. They'll be mixed in, but no captains or anything like that. I'll be playing a lot of Daniel Jones stacks. Not Daniel Jones and the captain, but Sterling Shepard and the captain. Slayton and the captain. Engram and the captain. But I'm also playing the opposite 4-2s, where I just have like Scotty Miller or Tyler Johnson and the captain and Brady, and that's it. And maybe Fournette, like a 3-3 like that. And then it's Jones and two pass and then, those types of lineups, and still leaving 3,000 on the table. Like, having a lineup that could have Mike Evans in it, but instead of playing Mike Evans, I'm playing Rob Gronkowski or Scotty Miller and leaving money on the table.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, my single entry build tonight, I've got $4,000 on the table. Like, I already know that. Like, I built it earlier today, not changing it. It's $4,000 on the table in single entry for me tonight. And typically on those nights, those are probably some of my larger nights. Like I'm just being honest with you, Blunt. And I know we're not like talking about the slate the whole time. We're talking about the strategy of it all. If I leave 2,000 on the table, so you're saying, before the slate starts, you're like, God, I got these duplicates. I almost feel more uncomfortable leaving more money. I mean, having less money on the table. Like if I have 1,500 in Showdown, I'm like, I don't feel good about this because it just feels like massive duplication. Like it's just, I don't feel comfortable at all. So I'm with you, man. I view Showdown more like baseball, and hopefully people understand the concept of this. I've probably earned more money in baseball when I've left like 1,500 on the table on a main slate because, you've got the Detroit bats and then maybe you ran, 2 Coors bats and two bats from Minnesota. And you've got like, a mid-tier pitcher and so you've got 1,500. It's like, God, that seems so like you're leaving so much money, but it's a totally different strategy in baseball. It's not like basketball where you need all these guaranteed points. Baseball, I can take a 0 and win a tournament. And so, it's kind of the same thought process I have with Showdown, where I feel like the more money I leave on the table, the more likely I am to win because it's just not what the field wants to do. And I think those two combinations with your approach and looking at Slate IQ, which obviously I look at it as well, if you put all those things together, then you've got this pot of gold at the end that you've got a really good chance at getting or splitting with, let's say, 2 or 3 more leprechauns. Let's go with that analogy.
Right, and then you try for the correlations. Because once you get different, you could keep more correlations in your lineup. But understand that most Showdown players are going to go for correlation. If they play Tom Brady and the captain, it's going to be 2 or 3 Buccaneers receivers. Or if they play Ronald Jones, they're not going to have Leonard Fournette. Or if they play Wayne, they don't play 2 running backs together. They don't play 2 tight ends together in a lineup. Hey, it could be Rob Gronkowski and Cameron Great that both get touchdowns. And all the receivers is left there, with their hand in their pants, going, what happened to me? So, like, I look for those types of builds that at the surface seem less correlative. And it's right. You're absolutely right. They're negatively correlated. But I'm making up for the fact that, like, not many people are doing it. So I will have lineups that have Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones in it with no Tom Brady and no Mike Evans. And maybe the Bucs score 4 touchdowns. Ronald Jones runs it in twice. Fournette has 1. Maybe, it comes out and Brady only throws for 1 touchdown, and it's to who knows who it is. And that guy, he throws it to Mike Evans, but Mike Evans, let's say, has a line like one of those from the beginning of the season. 2 catches for 3 yards and a touchdown. So he's sitting there with what? 8.3 points? Yeah, you ain't beating me 8.3, 10.8K. Get out of here. And then Brady, he only threw for 1 touchdown because there were 3 rushing touchdowns. Fournette and Ronald Jones are sitting there with all the points, and no one's making that build. Like, very few people are making that build. And then there you go, 4 Giants. I will have lineups that one of the running backs for the Buccaneers is in the captain, and the other running back is in the flex, and the other 4 are Daniel Jones and the Giants in the mess. I know I know they're a mess, Will. But this is the only way to win. It's either $1 million or nothing tonight.
But I mean, look, that's the correlation play, though. I mean, if you really think about it, if you've got both running backs, because here's what it does. Now, everybody knows my strategy because I'm not playing Ronald Jones today. I'm rolling all his shares basically. Let me back up. When I X someone out, I'm not necessarily doing it all the time because I think they're a bad play. I'm doing it to get even more leverage on the field with more ownership. So while everybody else has got 55%, Ronald Jones, and 28% Leonard Fournette, I'm basically just going to double my Leonard Fournette shares and take like 60%. And I'm going to take, 30% Tyler Johnson. And then I'm going to take probably 60% or 70% Scotty Miller and maybe 80% Gronk, something like that, because I'm basically reallocating a portfolio. I'm taking all these shares and I'm saying I'm taking this company out and this company out, and I'm going to invest more here, and that's what gives me the leverage. And now guess what? By default, I'm going to have more ownership on Giants than other people because I've essentially taken out 2 of the highest owned players from the Buccaneers. And I mean, it's just a strategy you like to employ. Getting back to what you said, even though I'm not playing Ronald Jones, having Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones in the captain and playing the other running back, however you do it, Ronald Jones captain, Leonard Fournette flex, Leonard Fournette captain, Ronald Jones flex, then if you've got Daniel Jones in the pass catchers, that's essentially the flow of the game. If you're expecting the Buccaneers to literally destroy this team and they're trying to come from behind and make it up in garbage time, then the running backs probably are popping off the third and fourth quarter, and they probably are getting the touchdowns, and then you've got Daniel Jones and his receivers trying to keep up. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I'm not going that route today, but obviously the plan is solid.
Right. It's the same thing that you do when you X out players. You're basically saying
Correct.
that if I'm right and these two players bust, I have so many more lineups that could win. So you have so many of the Giants mixed in. So it's like you just have to get the right combination of the Giants and you're good. I think of it more in terms of I see Tom Brady at 84% projected owned and Mike Evans at 69% projected owned, and I'm not going to roster those guys. So what game script suits a game where Brady or Evans does not make the optimal lineup? Well, obviously, if they run the ball so much that both running backs get there, that's look how many lineups I'm busting. 84, 70. I mean, I'm busting literally 3/4 of the line, like combined, because they're probably going to be together. So I'm busting. Basically, if my lineup does well, it's going to lap 75% of the field automatically because Brady and Evans don't have enough to be in the optimal lineup. And then I have all the combination. Then we get to the will. I got all the. Then I'm mixing in. It could be Slayton. It could be Shepard. It could be Engram. It could and I'm leaving money on the table so anyone could fit in those slots. And I'm just building 60 of those types of lineups. So it's quite possible that I know I'm not Xing out Brady because in my Tyler Johnson captain lineups I need to have him in the flex because it correlates. But I think I may be Xing out Mike Evans. I'm looking down here. I'm mixing people in. I'm just trying to think of a way. It's very hard for me because I don't want to get into the point where I did everything right and I just X'd out the wrong guy. And if I just didn't X out that guy, I would have $1 million. So I'm less likely to X people out. But I mean, but I just limit my captains. I limit my captains to I think. Maybe I play Scott Miller captains. Maybe. I think I'm most likely going to play Gronkowski and Gronkowski, Fournette. I'm going by Slate IQ. I'm just going through it. In Slate IQ we trust. It's gotten so bad that Will can't even hear my strategy anymore. Will, can you hear me?
I've lost my audio for some reason.
You've lost your audio for some reason. Can you? Well, he can't hear me. We could talk about him now. He can't hear me now, so we could talk about him. He doesn't know what I'm saying. He has to read my lips. I can hear you, but he can't hear us. So let's go to the YouTube chat while he figures it out. I don't know. He can't go to YouTube, but he can't. It's delayed. He can't even do that. So Will, can you hear me? No.
Well, Blender, I just tested my audio, so I'm sure you can hear me. For some reason, I can't hear you, which is
turn on your speakers. Strange. Turn on your speakers or something. Go into your settings. He can't hear me at all. Okay, I don't know what we do now. Check your audio output to speakers or something.
I'm super sorry about this, gents. This is awful.
Just plug in whatever you want. Just plug in whatever audio device you want. He can't even hear me, so I had to chat. With him on the side. I have no idea. He can't. I can't. Do I have to do sign language to your turn to talk or something like that? I have no idea. I'll change the shot. I'll let Will figure that out. Let me set up my shot over here. There you go. This is what happens when you produce. So I gotta take care of all this also. Right? So while Will's trying to figure that out, if you have any questions Put it in the YouTube chat. Okay. Let's see. Unplug speakers and you unplug headphones. Okay. We're trying here at Rotogrinders. This is what happens when I produce. There's always some problem. There's always something like that. Call me, touch. CMT wants to know pizza or apple pie tonight. That has nothing to do with the slate. Whatever. Let's see. Wings or Chipotle. Most people have food questions, so we're not really dealing with food questions. Evan Ingram or Noah Fant. They're not on the slate. What are we doing with the Bucks D? They're 7,400. Okay, whenever you're rostering, okay, general strategy. Whenever you're rostering a defense or a kicker, you have to look at everyone that's underneath them. So if we go, let me put this up, right? Well, you can't even see my screen like that. Okay. Everyone underneath, they have to be able to beat everyone underneath them to be in the optimal lineup, pretty much. So if you play the Buccaneers, they have to beat Slayton, they have to beat Shepard, they have to beat Fournette, Engram, Gallman, Johnson, the kickers, Tate, Braid, like all those guys. Obviously, if they 2 pick sixes, sure, I guess they could get there. But or a very low scoring slate where the Giants do nothing, they could get there. But I think the Buccaneers at 7,400 is very. It's a very low probability that they'll make an optimal. You know, the optimal in a large field, large field. We're talking about the $1 million contest. Okay, so that's the general. So I'm having very little. I'll more likely have the Giants defense at 2,400. I'll have plenty of the Giants defense. Right, 2,400. Who do they have to beat at 2,400? Brait, Lewis, Watson, McCoy, Smith, Penny, Vaughn, Tanner Hudson. All I have to do is beat those guys if I play them in a lineup. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at. It's the price that matters. Okay, let's look at more YouTube chat. Hit the thumbs up button. Maybe if you hit the thumbs up button, you would be able to, maybe Will's headphones would work again. I know, Will. Can you hear me? Can you still hear me? Hello? No, he can't. He can't hear me at all. He still can't hear me. Do you want to hear me? That's probably the answer is no. Okay. Let's see. QQ, Donnie Watson, if I faded Mike Evans in the flex but kept him in the captain 15%, because if he hits the ceiling, you probably need him there. Does that make sense? Yeah, every lineup is independent of one another. If you want to play some Mike Evans captain lineups and not play other Mike Evans lineups with him in the flex, you could, sure. You have to view each lineup individually. So don't think in terms of exposures, right? We talk in terms of exposures because when you play 60 lineups, I can't just say I'm playing everyone. It's it depends on the lineup that I'm playing them in. Let's see. Can you throw out some FanDuel advice? It's very FanDuel. Come on. There's 5 slots and no salary multiplier. So you're playing Brady in the MVP or something. It's very hard to get unique on FanDuel for their large field contests. That's why we tend to talk more about DraftKings here, because I think there's a lot more combinations that make sense. You're not putting you're probably not playing MVP Cameron Brate, right? But that is an option on DraftKings, right? That's more of an option. So that's why we don't necessarily talk about FanDuel as much. Just look at the projections and play the best lineup you can. Fantasy Sharpie asks, any 5-1 Giants stacks? No. I don't think I'm not going to go that crazy for a Giants onslaught. But yeah, I'll have no 5-1 lineups at all. I'll only have 4-2. And the 4 is most likely going to be on the Giants side. I may have some 4-2 Bucks lineups, but not many of them. Kieran Crooks asks if I could get why we got people spamming now in the chat. Can I? Okay, this is what happens when you have to produce. Put a user in timeout. Can we do that? Okay, there we go. Done. I have to produce. Will's having problems. It's going great today. Let's see, where do we get to that question? Who would you play as the third buck if playing 2 running backs in a 3-3 lineup construction? Just one of the receivers. Just whoever fits, right? At that point, I don't care. Just I'm going to play the running back in the captain, the other running back in the flex, get Daniel Jones and 2 other guys, and then whoever happens to fit in that other slot, just fit him in. And If I'm playing multiple lineups, I'm just rotating whoever that guy is, right? It could be Scotty Miller. It could be Mike Evans. It could be Gronkowski. It could be literally whoever fits in that spot. I just want to make those types of constructions. That's what I'm doing. Blender, does your comment on the defense have to outscore everyone underneath them apply to everyone? If so, why does it always come out when we talk about yeah? Well, of course it applies to everyone, right? Of course, I mean that's literally what we're doing, right? If Tyler Johnson outscores Mike Evans, right, then Tyler Johnson is going to be more likely to be in the top winning lineup than Mike Evans would be. The thing is that defenses had the defense like doesn't rely on other people. Like if Mike Evans has a good game, that means Tom Brady has a good game. Like those types of things. The defense, like how else do they score? A ceiling other than like touchdowns or a shutout, right? So like yeah, the Buccaneers defense could shut out the Giants. They have a pick 6 and 3 sacks, and they're sitting there at 20 plus points. Oh, okay, that's perfectly fine. But a lot of times the defenses only end up with 7 points, right? So you look at 7 points and go, okay, I'll take 7 points. When the Giants defense down here is at 2,400, if they get 7 points, like all I need to care about is does Cameron Brake get 7 points? Does Watson? Does Lewis? Does McCoy? Does Caden Smith? Those guys. If one of those guys gets more than 7 points, then the defense isn't going to be optimal, right? So because the defense, you see less paths for them scoring a lot of points. So when a defense is 7,400, like I have to see that. I have to see that. Are they going to score on more points than the Giants wide receivers? Probably not. Oh boy. House of COD, you don't have to keep on typing the same name in. Gallman or Lewis, you know what you should do? Well, first off, Gallman is the lead running back, so most likely you should play Gallman. It's just that he's more expensive, right? So that he's going to get 70% of the work, but he's 70% of the price. You could do that. Another thing you could do is you could look at the goddamn projections, right? You could actually sign up for Rotogrinders.premium and just look at them. Like that's perfectly fine. So there you go. So there's House of COD. Remember, this is a free show. So if you don't want to watch, you can just go. Okay? If you're gonna spam the chat like that, I'm gonna talk to you like that. I'll answer all the questions in the chat that are there. But Brandon Napier, Blender, do you think Scotty Miller and Gronk correlate without Brady, or is not playing Brady limit the ceiling? I think if you could play one of them in the captain, then you don't play the other one. Like I think they're at the certain prices. Obviously, it depends on the score of the game. If it's a very low scoring game, like the correlations don't matter at all. I mean, a mess of people that are not correlated could win because the individual player scoring is going to be low. But obviously, if you play Brady and the captain, yeah, then you play Miller and Grunt. That makes absolute sense, of course. But and if you play one of them in the captain with Brady, you just have to hope that Mike Evans doesn't get much or Tyler Johnson doesn't get much. But also, you're playing kind of a chalky construction anyway. So, like, most likely, if you're playing an expensive captain, I don't want to play another expensive guy in the flex. So I think in that example, like, if I'm playing Scotty Miller, if I'm playing Gronkowski up as a Tampa Bay wide receiver, like, because you're going to probably play Brady in the flex. So if I'm playing Gronk at captain, most likely I won't have Miller or Evans in the flex. If I'm playing Miller as captain, I won't have Evans in the flex because Gronkowski is cheaper than Miller. And if I have Evans in the captain, I probably won't play Miller and Gronkowski at all. More likely to play Fournette or Tyler Johnson or Cameron Braid or one of those guys. Because all those expensive guys trying to hit their ceilings at once is very difficult. Obviously, it could happen. They could put up 52 points this game. Who knows? Okay, let's see. Blender, are you playing any Shady McCoy tonight? I don't think so. Remember, I haven't built my lineups yet. After the show, I'm gonna build my lineups because we're gonna get out of here in about 3 minutes. So if you have any last questions, feel free to type them in. What do I think about Dion Lewis as a punt? How many snaps do you think? Well, I have no idea what will happen in the game, so I can't answer questions about the future. Who would I play as a run back if you were playing the Bucks D? In captain? Bucks D and captain. Well, most likely, obviously, if you're playing the Bucks D, you're more likely to play the running backs, right? More Ronald Jones, right? The running back, the defense type of thing. So that makes more sense. But because the only way for the Bucks D at 7,400, like it's pick sixes. Like the Buccaneers aren't going to have the ball enough if the Buccaneers score like if the Buccaneers defense scores 20 points on like pick sixes or punt returns, the Bucks just don't have enough possession that Brady and Evans and all those guys are unlikely to get there. Daniel Johnson asks who's technically the number one wide receiver on the Giants, Slayton or Shepard. It's close. I don't know. Who would be considered the number one wide receiver? I don't know. Okay. Giants. Well, I like the Giants defense because he's 2,400, right? Doesn't take much to get there. One mistake by Brady, pick six, and there you go. 2,400. You're done. Okay, let's see. What if you have 3 entries? It's smart to have each lineup set differently. How would you split those up? Just make the best lineups you can for the contest you're in. If you're going to play GPPs, don't worry about losing, right? Don't say, I only have 3 lineups, so I can't play Caden Smith in a lineup. No, if it makes sense in that lineup, that's what you should be playing. QQ, are you playing any Alfred Morris? Is he even in the player pool? Is Alfred Morris even in the player pool? Oh, he actually is in the player pool. So he got called up. So he'll be the 3rd running back? No, I mean, obviously from my reaction, I'm not going to play him. Okay. How do you go about projecting a player's captain spot usage? Well, it's a math formula. That's why you sign up for Rotogrinders Premium. Rotogrinders.com/premium. Chris Germino, he's a data scientist. He knows how to do all this stuff. So I outsource it to him. He does all the calculations, and that's what you get. You get the ownership, you get the projections, you get everything. For all Showdown slates, even the little mini Showdown slates during Sunday, and the main slates and NBA, MLB, everything. So sign up for Rotogrinders Premium. I'm always in the Rotogrinders Premium Discord. So if you ever want to ask me questions, like people ask me if I do private coaching, it's like I'm in the Rotogrinders Discord all the time. So sign up for that. So I'm gonna get out of here. Will still cannot hear me. So he wanted to let you know that he's sorry to all of his fans. More people like Chief Justice. More people like Will than they like me, right? I have a select, some of the nerd people like me, but most of the regular people like Will. We make a good combination here. And so if I don't win tonight on the Monday Night Showdown, I hope you do. If you're playing if you're not playing the $1 million contest on DraftKings, like I want all of you guys to win. Just all of you should win. And if you want more good content and advice, we always have these shows on Thursday night, on Sunday night. I'm in the Discord. Chief's always in the Discord there. So feel free to show up there if you're a premium member. So for Will, who cannot hear me, I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, and this has been Monday Showdown Live here on Rotogrinders.com.